Welcome to What's Trending, your go-to podcast for staying informed about what's trending in the ever-evolving landscape of Westchester and beyond. We are your hosts, Amanda DePalma, Senior Vice President of Events and Development, and Dr. Marcia Gordon, President and CEO of the Business Council of Westchester. On today's episode, we are doing something a little different for everybody listening. We are introducing the first ever BCW Network, Podcast Network, Podcast Swap, which is incredibly exciting. Joining us today is Harriet Libov, Associate Real Estate Broker at Houlihan Lawrence and Armonk Brokerage, and the host of Your Real Estate Connection in Westchester, which was featured in the September-October issue of 914 Inc. And we were all written up with a few other podcasts as well, and we thought this would be a great idea to bring some new voices to the podcast network and do this little podcast swap. So thank you for being here, Harriet. Before we get into it, we're very excited. We want to talk to you today about your career, your podcast, the ever-evolving real estate landscape, and then, of course, for those listening, be sure to stay tuned for mine and Marcia Gordon's appearance in the Real Estate Connections podcast at a future date. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited about this.
It's going to be so good.
Yeah.
What's Trending is sponsored by Thompson & Bender and M&T Bank. Thank you for your support of the BCW Podcast Network.
At M&T Bank, we believe in making banking simple for our customers, like we did for Margarita, the CEO of Mas Panadas, a woman-owned empanada company.
M&T has taken a significant weight off her shoulders with their tools, their support. I don't want to be worried about banking and worrying about my finances just not running smoothly. And if there's any snag, that I can just grab the phone and call and get help.
See what banking together can do for you at mtb.com/together. Member FDIC.
Looking for unparalleled success in PR and marketing? Look no further than Thompson & Bender, the leader in strategic communications. With over 30 years of expertise, they've mastered everything from PR and advertising to social media and event marketing, ensuring their clients' success. Recognized with awards like the Business Council of Westchester Hall of Fame, City and State Power 100, and voted Best in Westchester for advertising, public relations, and social media by 914 Inc., their track record speaks for itself. Join the ranks of clients from Fortune 500 corporations, small businesses, educational and healthcare institutions, and many more who've benefited from their innovative strategies. Trust Thompson & Bender to elevate your brand to new heights. So Harriet, to start, can you tell us about your background prior to real estate and what ultimately led you to transition into this field?
Well, I reinvented myself several times before I got to this point. But my business degree was in marketing in school. So that's always what I loved. I also loved fashion, and my first job out of college was at Vogue magazine on the business end. And then when my kids were born, I stayed home for a while, moved to the suburbs, and took a part-time sales position in staffing at a company that no longer exists, but was owned by two women entrepreneurs was called Vantage Staffing. And they had a very corporate approach as a private-owned business, and my job was to bring in new business. And then I took a break and actually started a Judaica catalog with a friend, and that didn't quite work out. So it was time for me. My kids were at this point were in high school and college, and it was time to really reinvent myself to something that was going to be my forever job. And that became real estate. And I got my license in 2001, built my business. The marketing expertise came in as to how to market myself and build my career. And I just remember, I was in my 40s. I don't think I could have ever had the strength, to do this in my 30s. But in my 40s, I could be, someone who was no longer anonymous in my town. I was okay with that. And I also I saw these women at Houlihan Lawrence who were like the top producers when I would go to the events, and they were well into their 60s and still doing it and loving it. And I said, this will give me the longevity I want. And that's how it got started. And I built my business, and it's been wonderful for me. And I love what I do, and have no plans to retire. And it's been great.
Well, that is a true testament to a successful businesswoman, is just constantly reinventing yourself and making it work for you. Now, you've worked with both buyers and sellers all throughout Westchester. How does your approach differ when working with each group, and what strategies do you find most effective?
Well, my approach is the same in that I want to be their knowledgeable guide who they can trust, who's transparent, to help them make good decisions. And for the seller, it's to get the best price. And for the buyer, it's to find and negotiate their home. And, it changes. Certainly it's changed for sellers as long as I've been doing this, staging, photography, virtual staging, being on top of what their options are and their budget is to spend to create excitement for their home online. And for buyers, oh my God, in this market, I feel for them. It's awful. So, it's working with them to figure out how to find that home. I mean, it's just impossible right now for a buyer. So I've done it in every market. I've done it, in the reverse when the buyers were in charge. And I think the nuance for me is that my business is 50-50. And I think working with buyers makes me a better listing agent because I walk into a house as a listing agent and I know what buyers are going to like and not like. And I know what I have to do to overcome their objections.
Are you noticing any specific behaviors that are different between buyers and sellers? And what tips would you give folks entering today's market?
Well, I think the sellers are much more savvy than they used to be. In this kind of a market 10 years ago, 12 years ago, sellers would have been trying to sell on their own. But now it's the opposite. It's so overwhelming to them what they have to do to put their house online in a good light that they want the expert, and they are seeking out the expert's advice. Buyers, they need counseling. If I had gotten my master's in counseling and social work, I would have been better equipped than getting my real estate license because they are just losing one house after another and in this moment and really need to put my counsel to them is put your best foot forward if this is your house and I have to call you back and say you didn't get it. Give me that number that you'll say, okay, at that number, I'm okay, I didn't get it. And that sounds horrible, but, I'm also giving them information from that I'm gathering in pending listings, knowing where things are going and where they'll appraise to help them make that decision and feel comfortable with that decision.
No, that's so important. Now, in that spirit of reinvention that you had mentioned earlier, how was the idea for the podcast, Your Real Estate Connection in Westchester, born? And what made you feel that it was the right next step in expanding your career?
Well, I hired my assistant Rebecca Burla in 2015. And in that interview, one of her ideas for me was a podcast. And we kind of never did it. And, it was pretty primitive at that point, but it was a great idea. And then I was noticing on social media that a lot of the agents were talking into their phone and, telling people who they were. And that just was not me. And I was not going to be on Facebook talking into my phone, talking about myself. And then I came across through a friend of a podcast of a designer in Westport and asked her how she did it, who her production company was, what was involved. And Rebecca and I explored it. And that's how it came to be.
I love a good podcast story. Harriet, thank you so much so far. This has been a great conversation. We're going to take a quick break. Let's not go anywhere. You are listening to the BCW Podcast Network. This is What's Trending, and we'll be right back. Looking for unparalleled success in PR and marketing? Look no further than Thompson & Bender, the leader in strategic communications. With over 30 years of expertise, they've mastered everything from PR and advertising to social media and event marketing, ensuring their clients' success. Recognized with awards like the Business Council of Westchester Hall of Fame, City and State Power 100, and voted Best in Westchester for advertising, public relations, and social media by 914 Inc., their track record speaks for itself. Join the ranks of clients from Fortune 500 corporations, small businesses, educational and healthcare institutions, and many more who've benefited from their innovative strategies. Trust Thompson & Bender to elevate your brand to new heights.
At M&T Bank, we're continuously working to provide value to our customers. Like Lou, the CEO of OOFOS, a revolutionary footwear brand.
I think the thing I like most about working with M&T Bank is knowing they care. They sincerely care about us as a company. It's not just about the business transaction. They personally care about our business and our success and would make decisions that go above and beyond to achieve that.
See what banking together can do for you at mtb.com/together. Member FDIC.
Welcome back to the BCW Podcast Network. This is What's Trending. Before the break, we were talking a bit about, Harriet, your journey into real estate, the way you support buyers and sellers, your trends that you're seeing, and of course, the story behind the start of your podcast, Your Real Estate Connection in Westchester. How has your career at Houlihan Lawrence shaped your perspective as an agent and as a communicator?
That's actually a very easy one. I've been with Houlihan Lawrence my whole career, and a lot of agents move around. It used to be owned by a family, and they also helped me in my career build a business, gave me the tools, which I don't think exists today for any new agents. They have to join a team. They can't build something that's their own. And they always had great values. They're a class act. They always kept us informed and ahead of the curve. I've always had managers that I've admired and were there for me, and I felt always had my back when I needed the support. And we were bought by Home Services of America quite a few years ago, but they still keep it local and within the company. The new CEO is Liz Noonan, who, when I started my career, was head of relocation in the same office that I was in Armonk. So I've known her and watched her rise, and it's just a great company. I mean, one of the things people will learn about me on my podcast is I really believe that real estate is local. All the young agents now and a lot of teams are traveling anywhere and everywhere their buyer wants them to go. And I don't really believe that they know each community the way they should. So I'm very grateful to their philosophy because I think it completely shaped me as an agent.
No, that's great. And Liz and Houlihan Lawrence, they're good friends of the BCW as well. You had mentioned earlier, you started the podcast because it really felt good to you and comfortable to you in terms of a niche and expanding your market. How has producing and hosting your podcast helped you grow as an agent, whether it's in your network, your expertise, or just the way you connect with clients?
I think the biggest surprise is that it's made me look at different topics and really think about what people want to hear about. And also, I have used it in ways that I really didn't expect. The first of obviously being social media and promoting it and promoting myself, but also if I go on a listing appointment and I introduce the idea of staging, which they're not quite comfortable with, I send them my podcast on the episode of a seller who staged, was thrilled that they did, got hundreds of thousands of dollars that they didn't expect, and at least open their mind to thinking about it.
And who doesn't love getting money they don't expect?
Yeah, exactly. And even with new buyers, like the towns they're interested. I've recorded episodes about each town. After we get off the phone, I'll send them the episodes to listen to the nuances of each town that I cover. So I'm sharing it in a way that was never part of what I thought it would be. And I find that really fun and interesting.
No, I think that's incredibly interesting. I would have loved to, when I was doing my home buying, it would have been fantastic to listen to an episode of the town and the highlights and where to look and just what to know as we were doing our search. I think that's such an innovative way to really showcase for your clients one way or the other, what they're looking for.
And they get to know me and my philosophies by listening. And I think that's really important.
Well, as you mentioned earlier, it's really all about the relationship. And so that just gives them such an insight into you that, a buyer or a seller may not necessarily have with their agent in any other way.
Right.
Now, looking in 2026 now, what are your thoughts on the Westchester real estate market and changes, opportunities, challenges? Talk us through some of that.
The only change that we're going to see that's going to make an impact is when we get more inventory. I don't know. All I can tell you is doing this for 20 years, it's all cyclical. And this has been a really long cycle that I just can't get over. And until people really decide that they're not hanging on anymore and they're ready to make a change, I think we'll still be where we are. Because, there's just nothing for people to buy.
Do you have any suggestions or opportunities or suggestions for folks what they could do in the meantime? Is it better for them to wait? Do they get something else? Instead of it just being there's nothing there, what can we do to maybe point people in the right direction?
I think they have to look at their own life and figure out how to wait this out. My own daughter is renting until the right thing comes along. And I have taken some people who thought they wanted to live in Armonk and Chappaqua and moved them to Katona and they're very happy with that choice. But they have to be open-minded as to what is realistic because, for example, if they want to buy a house they want to pay $1.2 million, they probably have to look at things that go on the market for $900,000. If they want to be in the game.
Yeah. No, but I think that that's one of the most important things you said is it's the being open-minded. There's so much out there that I think sets very unrealistic expectations into buying and selling in the residential real estate market. And I think people do have to be open-minded and willing to be flexible to make it work for them. So I think that's incredibly important. Harriet, thank you so much for doing this with us. The podcast, like you said, it's a great opportunity to get voices to be heard and reach clients and friends. So what's next for you and the Real Estate Connection, your Real Estate Connection in Westchester podcast? One of the fun things about this podcast swap is getting, as I said, to hear new voices. And so, of course,
I'm hoping
we want to send some of our listeners to you.
We're going to have you on my podcast.
We are. But what are exciting episodes?
Something exciting.
Oh, it is.
And
what is
I'm going to take a look at that list of the 5 podcasts and kind of talk to those other people too. I think that's a great idea. And the other thing that I'm going to be doing and that's come to light is I've done a lot of work in new construction, and I am starting to hear from buyers that they want healthier builds. And the wellness part is coming into new construction. And I am actually working with a young woman who has her own business, which is consulting on healthy builds. And so I do want to, she came across my way because she's looking for land to build for herself in Armonk. And her ideas are so interesting, and I'm following her on Instagram, and I think she's terrific. And then also one of my new homes that it just is going into contract is being bought by someone who asked questions of the builders that I've never experienced before. What kind of materials are in the kitchen cabinets? What is the insulation all about? And they are making sure that it's environmentally good for their family. And I think that's a very interesting new dimension that's going to be happening more and more.
Well, all these episodes sound incredibly exciting to listen to, so I will definitely be following and listening as well. Harriet, thank you so much for joining us today on What's Trending. Your insights into the market, your career, and the power of connection have been incredibly valuable. Thank you also to our sponsors, M&T Bank and Thompson & Bender, and all of our listeners. Be sure to check out Your Real Estate Connection in Westchester, hosted by Harriet Libov, and make sure to continue listening to What's Trending, and be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Be sure to check out the BCW Podcast Network's expansive lineup of shows: Leadership Unleashed, What's Trending, Advocacy and Politics Unplugged, The Member Spotlight, and Nonprofit Voices of Impact. The Business Council of Westchester is the county's largest business membership organization focusing on economic development and advocacy. With over 1,100 members, it is our mission to work for the profitability of our members and the prosperity of the Westchester community. To learn more, go to thebcw.org.
The BCW Podcast Network. Build, connect,